Republicans have described Ocasio-Cortez as the leader of her party, as the boss of the Democratic Party. And there's a reason that they're saying that, because she is. And she said so herself in an interview on Friday. Watch this.
Oh, it's unrealistic. Oh, it's vague. Oh, it doesn't address this little minute thing. And I'm like, you try. You do it. Right. Because you're not. Because you're not. So until you do it, I'm the boss.
That's
How
right.
about that?
She's the boss. So how did this happen? Well, for the last 2 years, Democrats have been very distracted. They have spent all of their time hating Donald Trump and none of their time thinking about what they would do if they ever took charge, as he just did of the Congress last November. So they arrive in Washington in January and they have no idea what to do. Lucky for them, someone had a plan. She was a 29-year-old bartender from the Bronx, and she showed up with a brand new Democratic platform already written. She imposed it on her party. It's called the Green New Deal. And in less than 2 months, she has basically convinced the entire leadership of the Democratic Party to buy into this plan, to ratify it. It's a perfect plan. It would shut down the entire American economy except for the hedge funds that fund Democratic campaigns. Absolutely perfect. There's only one downside. The plan, if enacted, would cost, some estimate, more than the entire global GDP. Not the GDP of the United States, but the GDP of the world. It's pretty expensive. But it doesn't bother Ocasio-Cortez at all. She doesn't care. Listen to her describe her reaction to the bean counter's description of this is too expensive. Here's what she says in response.
Our planet is going to face disaster if we don't turn the ship around. And so it's basically like there's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult. And it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question. You know, is it okay to still have children?
Is it okay to still have children? Well, I don't know, Alexandria. Can we? You're the boss now. If you say we can't reproduce the species, of course we won't. It's your call. My gosh. It's a measure of how cowardly and passive everyone's become all of a sudden that a chorus of right-thinking Democrats hasn't told this idiotic windbag to be quiet and take a seat. Don't talk until you learn something. But, of course, nobody's done that. They're all too afraid of her. What you're watching isn't politics. It's a children's crusade, an army of tiny combatants marching off in oversized clothes into an unknown, puffed up with ignorant self-righteousness. Last week, as if on cue, activists showed up with a group of kids to harass California Senator Dianne Feinstein for the crime of not endorsing the Green New Deal. Watch.
Some scientists have said that we have 12 years to turn this around.
Well, it's not going to get turned around in 10 years. What we can do,
Senator, if this doesn't get turned around in 10 years, you're looking at the faces of the people who are going to be living with these consequences.
The government is supposed to be for the people and by the people and all
you know
for the
what's
people.
Interesting about this group is I've been doing this for 30 years. I know what I'm doing. You come in here and you say it has to be my way or the highway. I don't respond to that.
Any plan that doesn't take bold, transformative action is not going to be what we need.
Well, you know better than I do. So I think one day you should run for the Senate.
Mm-hmm. You almost feel a little bad for Dianne Feinstein. This is not the politics that she joined. When Dianne Feinstein became a U.S. Senator 27 years ago, the Democratic Party was still sort of tethered to reality. They cared about the middle class, or said they did. They wanted a secure border. Dianne Feinstein made that case herself. They said they wanted abortion to be legal, but at least they said they also wanted it to be rare. They never told you not to have children. Dianne Feinstein is 85 now. She is not the future of the Democratic Party. Comrade Ocasio-Cortez is the future. She may be arrogant and dumb, but at one point she's absolutely right. She is the boss. Josh Holmes is a former chief of staff and campaign manager for Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. He was recently accused by Ocasio-Cortez of running a, quote, multi-million-dollar operation to have bot accounts manipulate online discourse. There's no evidence for that claim, and Ocasio-Cortez later deleted the tweet. Josh Holmes joins us tonight. Josh, thanks very much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you, Tucker.
Where did first to the specifics of your experience with Ocasio-Cortez, where did the idea that you ran a multi-million-dollar bot farm come from, do you think?
I mean, look, your guess is as good as mine. I actually have absolutely no idea. I would love to know the fever swamps that this conspiracy came from, but I'm afraid I'll probably never know. But I think it actually touches upon what your lead-in with is, in that she's so uncomfortable with the idea that there are people who disagree with her, so uncomfortable with the idea that there are conservatives walking the planet, that the idea that there's any traffic online, anybody who could disagree with something as sacred as the Green New Deal, certainly must be bought and paid for and totally corrupt by some Republican out there like me.
This is kind of what Democrats deserve, though, after spending 2 years not mentioning what they might be for, an affirmative case for their views, a program for America, instead focusing on Trump. I mean, she just filled a void.
Yeah, that's entirely right, and I'm glad that you're covering that. It is really easy to look at somebody who's milling about their kitchen, espousing the absolutely crazy views that she espouses on a night-to-night basis. I mean, I don't know what's going on, but what she's coming up with is crazy. But it's not that crazy in the context of the Democratic Party, because as you saw, she rolls out the Green New Deal. The next thing you know, we've got 2020 candidates on the record that are all of a sudden coming out in favor of banning cows. I mean, this kind of lunacy is now becoming mainstream in Democratic politics, and if we don't take it seriously, I'll be darned if we're not going to wake up and half this country is going to be endorsing those kind of things. We got to fight for it.
Well, I think that's exactly right. It's foolish to sit back and just laugh and, oh, how stupid this is. I mean, I think if she were 35, I think she could be president. But I'm just struck by how easy it was for her to take over the Democratic Party. I mean, there's basically been no resistance. Nobody has been brave enough. Even Senator Feinstein, who's 85, what does she care? No one has stood up and said, you know what? You don't know anything. You're arrogant and dumb. Please be quiet. Why will no one say that?
Yeah, well, I think you got a combination of problems. I think the first problem is that you've seen the leadership of the Democratic Party largely confined to septuagenarians who have been so out of touch with the American people for so long that the base of the Democratic Party is looking for something new. She's seen that, and she's seized upon that to try to drive this wedge that, started developing in the Sanders campaign, honestly, against almost a generational battle within her party. The difference is what she's come up with, and the views that she's espousing here are incredibly dangerous. I mean, a restructuring of the economy, the likes of which we've never seen before, tearing down every building in America and replacing them with some new green dream, a $93 trillion deal. Well, I mean, here's the problem, is that they're all saying they're going to vote for it. Right? I'm glad Mitch McConnell is actually going to put this sucker on the Senate floor, so at very least we can see the 2020 Democrats who are running for president come down and be counted, because darn well when they get to Ohio in a general election, they're not going to want any part of this deal.
No, I mean, it's a pure Democratic takeover of the U.S. economy. It's just so interesting. I mean, you worked in the Senate. There must be Democratic senators who think that this is unwise and dangerous to their party. Why aren't they saying anything?
Absolutely. Well, you saw with Dianne Feinstein why they're not, right? I mean, here's a senator who dared question the idea that we don't ruin the Democratic or the entire American economy, and she's shouted down by a bunch of children. And by the way, there were calls all over California for her to resign for that. I mean, this is the modern-day Democratic Party. I saw it personally with AOC attacking me. You see Democratic senators, if they dare question this wisdom, being shouted down by AOC's 3 million followers online, which, by the way, facts be darned, they're going to absolutely attack no matter what. And it's a really dangerous place for Democrats who have any sort of wherewithal these days.
Josh, thanks for that. That was smart and interesting.
Thank you, Tucker.
Appreciate it. Well, Democratic presidential candidates claim that climate change is an existential threat to all humanity, a matter of life and death for every person on this planet. Nothing less than that.
That climate change is real, is an existential threat to our country and the entire planet.
The biggest threat to our prosperity in this 21st century is climate change.
And if we don't have the bravery and the courage and the heart and the determination to take it on as the most important challenge of our lifetime, then we don't care about those children.
Climate change is an existential threat to us as human beings.
The threat is real. And it is existential, and we need to take action now.
So they say it a lot. They demand that you repeat it. They require that you believe it. They attack you if you don't. Any evidence of doubt makes you a denier. But do they themselves believe it? That's an interesting question and rarely asked. When he was campaigning for Hillary Clinton in 2016, Bernie Sanders repeatedly demanded private jet access for himself and his entourage. Over the past 3 years, according to a report in Politico, Sanders has spent almost $350,000 on private flights. How can you justify that if you believe the world is ending because of climate change? Adam Green is co-founder of the Progressive Change Campaign Committee, and he joins us today. Adam, thanks very much for coming on.
Hey, good to be here. Thank you.
So it's really simple. If you say you believe that carbon emissions are destroying the planet and making it impossible for people to live here, and people shouldn't have kids because this threat is so imminent and so profound, how could you possibly ever, under any circumstances, fly in a private aircraft?
Yeah, Tucker, I've seen you make enough good arguments to not really think that you think that's a very strong one. I mean, Bernie Sanders is thinking about a world... Don't belittle the
argument. Why don't you explain why it's wrong?
I am.
Okay.
Just like you wouldn't blame your viewers who aspire to a better job in the future for going to work every day and call them hypocrites now, you can't blame Bernie Sanders for supporting a world 10 years from now with less carbon emissions, but taking an airplane now. Those two things are not in contrast with each other.
No.
In fact, he would be a hypocrite if he was not campaigning around the country.
No, stop. No, you're misrepresenting what I said. Taking a private plane. Now, you know the numbers on carbon emissions per passenger, private versus commercial. There's almost nothing you can do short of starting a tire fire to cause a bigger carbon footprint than to fly private. So why in the world, if you believe that, why would you? No, not come on. Don't BS me. Don't make excuses for this guy. Hold him to the standards you expect the rest of us to live to. Why are you giving him a pass?
No, it's interesting to say BS because I've seen you, tear down people for making BS arguments. I know this is not the strongest argument against the New Deal.
What's BS about that? I don't understand. No, it's a sincere argument.
Here's the argument is this. Let me tell you what Bernie said today.
You guys don't believe a word you say. You want to take over the U.S. economy so you can control it.
Over 2 years,
you don't believe it's an imminent crisis.
Tucker, between 2017 and 2018, there was one 9-day spurt where Bernie Sanders went on a 9-day tour and took a private jet, and for the rest of the 2 years, he went commercial. So this is not a real issue. You don't believe this.
But why would he ever do it at all? If this is a moral issue, hold on, this is a moral issue. You guys have framed this not as a matter of science. Anyone who doubts is a denier because they're immoral. So why in the world would you do this? Because it's not a big deal, or it is a big deal? Which?
What would be hypocritical if he believed that Democrats were going to pass things that would save the world is for him not to campaign hard in the final 9 months or 9 weeks, 9 days for Democrats who are going to do stuff. Like, you're basically saying that...
How many houses does he have?
But he has, I don't know, how many does he have? He has one in Burlington. Okay, so what's your point?
3. Okay, so
what's your point?
My point is that if you believe that carbon emissions are destroying the Earth, that's too many houses, that's too much consumption, that's too much carbon. You lead by example. Why is it the people who are trying to control my life and tell me what I can do and can't do and how many kids I can have don't bother to restrain themselves?
Again.
No, it's not silly. It's true.
It's silly. It's a fake hypocrisy argument. You're basically saying that, if you believe that Facebook has bad privacy policies, you shouldn't check Facebook every day. If you believe you want a better job, you shouldn't go to work every day.
No, I'm saying if you think adultery is wrong, don't cheat on your wife.
If you believe in having a better economy
you attack other people
with tens of millions of jobs in the future in clean energy, of course he should spend the last few days of a campaign doing everything he can to fight for a Green New Deal.
You should reduce your own emissions. No, it's really simple. You should reduce your own emissions.
Should he walk from Vermont to D.C.?
Yes.
Should he walk from Vermont to D.C.? He should. You just said yes. You just said yes. He should walk from Vermont to D.C. That shows the BS argument that you just described.
Okay.
Taking a car.
What you're doing? You are making excuses because all you want is power. You're exactly the kind of person who would.
Tucker, I've seen you make better arguments than saying that he should walk from Vermont to D.C.
You're exposing the shallowness of your own argument.
Anybody who takes any plane.
This is idiotic.
Is it idiotic? You just said he should walk from Vermont to D.C. Obviously, you don't believe that.
Okay.
Obviously, you don't believe that. He's not a hypocrite for doing that. He believes in tens of millions of new jobs in the clean energy economy.
This is idiotic what you're saying because look, you will
just
never
said he should walk from Vermont to D.C.
or your leaders.
You just said
your dumb
he should walk from Vermont to D.C. I asked if he should walk. You said yes. Come on, not a real argument.
You got me, Adam. You got me. You're a brilliant guy. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We're gonna.